There were 3 wine glasses in the dishwasher, but we only owned 2. That's not where it started, but that's the first thing I noticed. The third glass was wedged in weirdly, as if it had been rinsed and hidden quickly. Lipstick print. Burgundy stain at the bottom. Still warm from the rinse cycle. I hadn't touched wine in weeks. I should have felt something then, right? A gut punch? Rage? Some kind of primal spark? But no. I just stood there holding an empty coffee mug, watching the slow fog roll off the dishwasher door like it was a crime scene, and I was waiting for someone else to solve it. She walked in behind me, humming. Always humming when she's lying. "You okay, honey?" she asked, tilting her head like she didn't just leave the house in heels that don't match lunch with her friend Meredith. There was a receipt on the counter. She hadn't seen it yet. I had. 2 entrees. 1 dessert. 1 engraved message plate. 1 room key. Yes, a room key. The receipt was from the Carillon Hotel. Downtown. Midday. I hadn't even meant to find it. I'd just opened the junk drawer looking for scissors, and there it was, folded like a secret with its little corners sticking out, begging to be read by the wrong eyes. My eyes. I picked it up again and handed it to her. No words. She laughed. She thought it was a prank at first. "Oh, what's this? Did you leave this for me to find?" She smirked, flipping it over. "Trying to spice things up? What's this, role play?" Her face fell on the second read. Dead silence. Not even humming. I watched the color drop out of her like someone turned off the lights behind her skin. Still, I said nothing. I just walked to the dining table where I had placed one thing. A second note. Not the receipt. A note I found taped under the table. Yeah, under the table. It was folded 3 times. It had her handwriting on the front. "Read this if he ever finds out." I didn't open it right away, but she saw it. And when she saw that, she sat down without being told. That's when I knew. This wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time thing. There was a system. There were protocols. There were contingency plans. She had written herself an escape hatch, and I had just pulled the lever. I unfolded the note. My hands weren't shaking. Not yet. Then I read the first line. And finally, I did start to shake. The note began with a time. Not an apology. Not an excuse. Not a "this isn't what you think." Just, "If you're reading this, it's probably around 4 p.m. The key will be in the second drawer. Don't use it unless you're ready." There was no signature. Just her handwriting. Neat. Careful. Like she took her time crafting it. Like she'd written it before. Rehearsed it in her head. Maybe even rewritten it once or twice. She sat perfectly still across from me at the dining table, watching my face as I read. No makeup now. The smell of vanilla shampoo lingered between us. That same stupid shampoo I used to love because it reminded me of bookstores and early mornings. I looked up slowly, holding the note like it might burn through my skin. "What's the key for, Mila?" I asked, voice thin and dry. She didn't answer, but her eyes did something strange. They didn't panic. They softened, as if she'd been waiting for this moment, as if relief was seeping into her bones. I hated that. "I told him this would happen," she said quietly, almost like she was quoting a movie. "Eventually. I said you'd find something. You were always so good at noticing small things." I blinked. Once. Twice. The weight of her words didn't hit me right away. "Him?" I asked. "You told him?" She stood up then, slowly, like someone exiting a funeral. She walked to the kitchen without looking back and pulled open the second drawer. The sound of wood scraping would made my spine twitch. She reached in, moved aside the pizza coupons and expired batteries, and pulled out a small brass key on a leather tag. She placed it on the table in front of me. "I'm not stopping you," she said. "But if you open that door, things won't go back to normal." My laugh came out broken. "You think there's a normal to go back to?" She just shrugged, turning away. Sometimes silence is safer than answers. That line, that exact sentence, it chilled me in a way nothing else had. Because it wasn't just evasive, it was practiced. Memorized. Like she'd rehearsed not just what to say if this day came, but how to say it. And that's when I started to realize. This wasn't about cheating. This was about something bigger. Something deeper. Something I was never supposed to see. I picked up the key. It was heavier than I expected. Cold. The kind of key you'd use to open something ancient. Something important. Something locked away on purpose. She didn't stop me when I left. She didn't cry. Didn't follow. Just stood there in the kitchen, facing the sink, as if the conversation had already ended. I walked out the back door. Around the side of the house. My legs were moving, but my thoughts were frozen. The sky was that weird pale orange it gets before a storm. The brass key fit a padlock I had never seen before, behind the garden shed. It was hooked into an old wooden latch I had always assumed was decorative. I didn't ask questions. I just unlocked it. And when the door creaked open, I immediately understood why she had said things wouldn't go back to normal. Because inside, I found a chair, a table, a wine glass, the same third one from the dishwasher, and pinned to the wall above the table was a printed photo of me, sleeping. I didn't move for a full minute after seeing the photo. The air in the shed was thick and damp, like it had been holding its breath for months. A single beam of dusty light came in through a small crack in the wall, landing right on the photo, right on my face. I was lying in bed in the image, mouth slightly open, eyes closed, the bedsheets pulled halfway up my chest. It wasn't flattering. It wasn't staged. It was real. It was raw. And it had been taken from above. Like someone had stood directly over me while I slept. And then I noticed the angle. There was no way this photo had been taken by someone standing. The bed in the photo was framed too perfectly, too square. It was almost cinematic, symmetrical, like something from a surveillance shot. I stared harder. That's when I realized it had been taken from inside our bedroom ceiling fan. The same old fan that creaked every night. The one I always said we needed to replace. I stumbled backward and knocked over the wine glass on the table. It shattered on the wooden floor, and the noise startled me like a gunshot. My heart was pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. I picked up the photo. The back was blank. No date. No message. Just thick matte paper, professionally printed, probably on the same kind of equipment I used for my freelance projects. The table had a drawer. Of course it did. And I don't know what possessed me to open it. Some part of me hoped it would be empty, so I could still pretend this was a twisted misunderstanding. But it wasn't empty. Inside the drawer was a black leather-bound notebook. No name. No lock. Just a small symbol embossed on the front. A simple triangle with a vertical line running through it. I didn't recognize it, but it felt deliberate. I opened it. Page 1. Subjects must remain unaware of surveillance for at least 90 days. Passive observation only. Emotional disruption invalidates data. I flipped the page. My hands were going numb. Edgar M. Primary subject 003. Domestic stability test phase 2. Observed behaviors suggest cognitive dissonance between perception of intimacy and actual partner engagement. No confrontation for 72 hours following exposure. It was dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. The day I found the burned-out candle in the bathroom, and she said she hadn't lit anything. The day the dog barked at the hallway for no reason. I kept reading. More notes. More timestamps. More details about me. What time I went to sleep. What time I checked my phone. What kind of music I played while working. How often I blinked while scrolling the news. What kind of person writes down how often someone blinks. That's when the nausea hit me. I staggered outside, gasping for air, trying to convince myself this wasn't what it looked like. Maybe Mila was doing some kind of psychology project. Maybe it was an art piece. A prank. Something with an explanation. But deep down I knew. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't about infidelity. This was about control. She was watching me. Recording me. And worse, testing me. I turned back toward the house. Every shadow now suspicious. Every window felt like an eye. I couldn't tell if she was looking at me from behind the curtains, or if I was finally just starting to see how little I'd understood her all these years. I walked through the back door slowly. Mila was sitting at the table again, this time with a pen in her hand, and her phone flipped face down beside her. She looked up, saw the notebook under my arm, and didn't even flinch. I thought you'd find it eventually, she said. You always want answers. But Edgar, she tilted her head slightly. Do you really want this one? She said it so calmly, like we were discussing a missed delivery or a broken light bulb. And that's when I asked the question I hadn't let myself ask until now. Is this still about us? I said, or am I just a participant? She smiled. And for the first time in our entire relationship, it didn't reach her eyes. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside her, eyes open, body stiff, listening to the sound of her breathing, steady, unbothered, like she hadn't just detonated the foundation of our life with a note and a key and a notebook full of surveillance logs. My mind was a carousel of unanswered questions. Who gave her permission to observe me? Who was she sending these notes to? Why the triangle symbol? Was this some underground social experiment? A cult? A government thing? Or was I just losing my mind? Around 4:10 a.m. I got out of bed as quietly as I could and went back to the shed. I needed to go through everything again, more slowly, more carefully. I didn't take a flashlight. I didn't want neighbors asking questions, so I used the light from my phone, keeping it dimmed low. I rechecked the notebook first. Every page was like a slap. One of them said, "Subject began expressing suspicion after finding receipt. Emotional trajectory tracking with predicted curve." Another entry was timestamped just 2 days prior. Observation zone compromised. Relocation protocol flagged. My stomach dropped. Relocation? Then, tucked inside the back pocket of the notebook, I found something I had somehow missed earlier, a Polaroid photo. It was grainy, poorly lit, taken through glass, from a distance. It showed me, sitting on our living room couch, with a man. But I'd never seen this man in my life. He was tall, wearing a navy blue jacket with a fur collar, and he was leaning in toward me, mid-conversation. His hand was on my shoulder. In the photo, I looked relaxed, familiar, like I knew him, like we were friends. My head started spinning. I have no memory of this. None. I don't know that man. I've never had anyone like that in my life. But the photo was real. You can't fake a Polaroid like that. And it was dated on the back, September 17th, 11:03 a.m. I remember that morning. I had stayed home alone while Mila ran errands. I watched a documentary about deep-sea creatures and ordered a turkey sandwich. I specifically remember getting mustard on the couch cushion. So, where the hell did this guy come from? Back inside the house, I dug through our closet and found our home security router. I'd never really bothered with the footage settings, assuming it was just standard motion-triggered recording. But when I logged into the admin dashboard, I saw something strange. All video files between August 29th and September 23rd had been deleted. Not corrupted, not failed uploads, manually deleted. I stared at the screen as a fresh wave of realization crashed over me. This was premeditated, covered up, sanitized. My body was buzzing with adrenaline, but it wasn't fear. It was that sick kind of curiosity that makes you stare into an open wound. By sunrise, I had convinced myself that I needed help. Not therapy, not a friend, but someone who could confirm whether any of this was grounded in reality. I messaged an old coworker, Jonah, a guy who once helped audit the back end of a now-defunct live streaming service for signs of tampering. He owed me a favor. I told him I had a personal project involving camera footage recovery and metadata tracking. He said to send the hardware and he'd look at it. I packaged the security drive and dropped it at the post office by 8 a.m., hands still shaking. When I got back, Mila was awake and in the kitchen, barefoot, making pancakes. She smiled at me like everything was normal, like she hadn't orchestrated an alternate version of our life behind a locked door. "Sleep okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said flatly. "You?" "Dreamt I was swimming in black water," she said, flipping a pancake. Couldn't see the bottom, but it felt safe. I nodded and sat down. She placed a pancake in front of me, kissed me on the head, and said, "You should get some fresh air today. Go for a walk. Might help clear your mind." The way she said it, like she was suggesting it, but also instructing me, it made the hairs on my neck stand up. Like she knew exactly how much was unraveling behind my eyes, and was trying to preemptively guide my breakdown. I decided to go for that walk. But I didn't go to the park. I didn't go to the store. I went downtown, to the Carillon Hotel, the place from the receipt. I needed to see if someone remembered her. Maybe there were cameras. Maybe someone would slip up. I walked straight to the concierge and asked if anyone named Mila had checked in recently. The woman at the desk gave me a polite smile and said she couldn't share that information. Then I pulled out the receipt and placed it gently on the counter. Her expression changed. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll have to speak with the manager." She walked into the back room and didn't return for 5 full minutes. When she did, she was no longer smiling. "Sir," she said slowly, "I believe there's been some confusion." "About what?" She hesitated. "That receipt, it doesn't match our system. The date, the format, it looks like one of ours, but it's not. That room number doesn't even exist." She slid the paper back to me. I stared at it. It looked perfect, right down to the logo. I left the hotel and stood on the sidewalk, lightheaded. Cars passed. A street musician played a cello somewhere nearby. I held the receipt in my hand like it might start dissolving. That's when I saw him. Across the street, leaning against a light pole, navy blue jacket, fur collar. He was watching me, and he smiled. He didn't cross the street. He didn't wave. He just stood there, still leaning against the pole, one boot resting on the concrete behind him like he had nowhere to be. But his eyes never left mine. The same guy from the Polaroid. Up close now. Real. And undeniably watching me. I must have stared for 20 seconds, trying to decide what to do. Fight. Run. Ask a question I wasn't ready to hear the answer to, but my legs chose for me. I stepped off the curb and crossed the street without checking traffic. Horns blared. I didn't care. I was too locked in on that face. But by the time I reached the other side, he was gone. Not ducked into a store. Not walking away. Gone. Like he had vanished into thin air. I scanned the sidewalk, even looked into the reflective windows of the bank nearby, wondering if I'd see him behind me. Nothing. I stood there breathing heavy like I'd just finished a sprint. I wasn't even sure what I had planned to say to him. I just knew that if he was in that photo, and he was here now, then either I was being followed, or something worse was happening. Back home, I didn't tell Mila anything. I watched her from across the kitchen while she watered the hanging ivy plant near the back door. She was humming again. A different tune this time, slower, almost mournful. The same melody looped in on itself, like it wasn't meant to resolve. I think I might visit my sister next week, she said casually, not turning around. Take a break. Clear my head. That was odd. She and her sister barely spoke, but I didn't respond. I was too busy staring at the coffee mug in her hand. It was one I didn't recognize. Beige, with a crackled glaze and the word study printed in faded black letters near the handle. We don't own that mug. At least, I don't think we do. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and went upstairs. In the bedroom, I locked the door behind me and pulled out a small plastic container from the back of my sock drawer. Inside were USB drives, old backups, work stuff, music. I remembered one labeled 2019 phone sync that I hadn't touched in years. I plugged it into my laptop. It opened normally. No corruption. Inside were folders by month. April, May, June, and so on. Each one held photo backups from my old Android. I clicked randomly, opening images. Mila and I at the beach. Mila cooking. Mila on the couch with a book. Me and Mila laughing in front of the mirror. But something was wrong. In all of them, I was wearing the same jacket. A dark gray zip-up hoodie. It was my favorite at the time, sure, but I didn't wear it every day. And Mila, she wore the same 3 outfits across dozens of photos, always in different locations. I opened the metadata on one of the beach photos. Taken July 8th. Timestamp confirmed. But when I looked at the data embedded in the file, there was something off. The GPS coordinates pointed to a completely different location. Inland. Not the beach at all. Somewhere near an abandoned rail yard we used to drive by on weekends. That's when it hit me. These weren't real memories. They were fabricated photo sequences, perfectly edited, strategically timed, but fake. None of the photos had candid movement. None had dynamic lighting. Every single one felt posed, staged, produced. Like stock photos of a life I was supposed to believe I lived. And then I saw it. A video file. Tucked into the August folder. It was named u_warrant_supposed for this. MP4. I froze. For a full minute, I hovered over the file, the cursor shaking slightly with my hand. The name wasn't random. It was a message. For me. Meant to be hidden in plain sight. Maybe in case something like this ever happened. I opened it. The screen went black for a few seconds. Then static. Then a low humming sound. My heart started pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Then the screen showed me a room. Our living room. Shot from a high corner angle, like a mounted security cam. Time code in the bottom right. September 17th. 11:04 a.m. The exact time on the Polaroid. And there I was. Sitting on the couch. Talking to someone. But the other person was blurred. Like pixelated, deliberately censored. No audio, no clear gestures. Just me, nodding, laughing, reacting like I was in a deep conversation. Then I did something that made my skin go cold. I got up, walked across the room, opened the hallway closet, pulled out a black folder, and handed it to the blurred man. I watched myself do it. And I don't remember any of it. The video ended abruptly. No outro. No explanation. Just static again, and then silence. I stared at the screen long after it went black. And then, behind me, I heard a knock on the bedroom door. Not loud. Just one single slow knock. I turned around. Mila. I said. No answer. Just silence on the other side. I waited 5 seconds. 10. Then I stood up, approached the door, and opened it slowly. But the hallway was empty. And sitting on the floor in front of the door was the same black folder. The folder felt warm. That was the first thing I noticed. Like someone had been holding it just moments before placing it outside the door. I turned it over in my hands. Matte black. No labels, no markings, just the faintest edge were along the corners. It smelled faintly of ozone and paper dust, that peculiar sterile scent you'd expect in an old library or a government archive. And when I opened it, the very first page made my knees buckle. Subject file. E. Mercer/authorization tier 2/engagement cycle number 4. My name. My actual name. Not Edgar, like I've always used. But E. Mercer. I didn't recognize the file number, but I recognized my own handwriting. That's what undid me. Across the top of the second page, a signed waiver. With my signature. Slanted, a little shaky, same way I always loop the M, like a capital cursive N. But I don't remember ever signing it. I don't remember agreeing to anything. I kept flipping. Dozens of printed logs. Observation notes from the last 6 months. Behavioral reports. Daily habits. Personal preferences. There were pages with codes I didn't understand, alphanumeric grids with patterns marked in highlighter. Drift markers, personality divergence thresholds, whatever that meant. Then, stapled in the center, was a profile summary titled, Cycle Termination Readiness, Subject Preparedness Assessment. It was dated 6 days ago. There were boxes ticked off beside phrases like, Subject accepts fragmented truth as whole. Displays synthetic memory stabilization under stress. No detected signs of cycle bleed-through. Candidate viable for transition or recycle. Recycle? I flipped another page and found a photo paperclip to the top. My face. Shaved head. Dark lighting. Hospital gown. Eyes closed. Below it, a caption. Post-cycle sedation, room 3B. I dropped the folder. My body was buzzing. My mouth was dry. My legs weren't working properly. This wasn't betrayal anymore. It wasn't even surveillance. It was reconstruction. Fabrication. My life wasn't mine. The memories I had of the wedding, the beach, the petty arguments about closet space, the night we danced in the kitchen to an old Otis Redding record. What if all of that had been part of the cycle? What if it had been installed? Programmed? I ran to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, looked in the mirror, and tried to see something real. Something mine. But the longer I stared, the more wrong it all looked. The wrinkle under my eye I didn't remember developing. The scar behind my jawline I swore had never been there before. The slight asymmetry in my smile, unfamiliar and off balance. I didn't recognize my own reflection, and worse, I couldn't remember when I stopped recognizing it. I went downstairs, folder still in my hand, and Mila was in the living room, curled up on the couch, watching something on the tablet with headphones in. She didn't look surprised to see me holding the folder. She just paused her video and pulled the headphones out. You opened it, she said, almost softly. Not accusatory. More like she was finally relieved. I need answers, I said, my voice barely steady. What is this? What am I? She set the tablet down and patted the couch next to her. I didn't move. You were happy, weren't you? She asked. Before all this. That's not the point. Isn't it? She said. You wanted a quiet life. You got it. You wanted love. You had it. You wanted purpose. I gave it to you. So why are you acting like this is a prison? Because it is. She nodded slowly. Fair. I could feel the floor shifting under me, like my brain was trying to unspool the difference between illusion and memory, between choice and control. My stomach churned and twisted as a horrifying possibility dawned on me. Am I real? I asked. The words tasted foreign. Am I even human? Her eyes went wide, but not in shock. More like pity, or restraint. Like there were still more answers I wasn't ready for. You're you, Edgar, she said. Whether you were born into it or built into it. Doesn't that count for something? That answer didn't help. It made everything worse. I backed away. My breath hitched. I felt like vomiting. How many times have we done this? I asked. How many cycles? She didn't answer. Not at first. Then, she looked at me and said, This is the 4th version of you I've loved. Something inside me cracked. I wasn't sure whether to scream, run, or beg for a reset myself. But before I could say anything else, she stood up and handed me a small envelope from the coffee table. This one's not part of the system, she said. I wrote it weeks ago, before they told me to start detaching. What is it? She looked at me one last time, and this time, there were tears. A choice. She walked upstairs. I stood in the middle of the room, shaking, staring at the envelope. Whatever was inside wasn't just a note. It was a line in the sand, and I was already halfway across it. I didn't open it right away. I stood there holding the envelope like it was radioactive, staring at the wax seal pressed into the back flap, deep red, unbroken, with the letters EM stamped into it. My initials. Except it wasn't my stamp. And it wasn't my handwriting on the front either. The strokes were too wide, too symmetrical, too neat. Someone had tried to make it look like me, but it was just off. The house was silent now. Mila had gone upstairs, the floorboards creaking once as she moved. No footsteps after that. No doors closing. She wasn't avoiding me. She was giving me space. Like she already knew what the envelope would do to me. Like she'd seen it happen before. I sat at the dining table. The same one where I used to drink my coffee and read news articles about other people's problems. The same one where we'd planned our trip to Vermont. The same one where I once told her I was scared of losing her. Not because I didn't trust her, but because she always felt too good to be real. Now I knew why. I broke the seal. Inside was a single piece of paper. Heavy stock. No creases. A short message, centered, printed in bold black serif font. If you're holding this, you've exited primary scripting. Do not trust your reactions. Do not believe your memories. Do not speak to her until you decide. Choose path A to re-enter. Choose path B to proceed. There were no instructions on what path A or path B meant. No map. No button to press. Just that message, stark and final, like the end of a transmission. Like I had tuned into a broadcast that wasn't meant for me, or at least not this version of me. I flipped the envelope upside down, and a second slip fell out. Much smaller, handwritten. Familiar script. Mila's this time. 3 words. Don't trust mirrors. That was it. No signature. No plea. No apology. My throat tightened. I stood up so fast my chair nearly tipped backward, and I walked to the hallway mirror, the tall one near the entrance we always used for last checks before leaving the house. I stared at my reflection, not just at my face, but into it, searching for cracks, for inconsistencies. But there was nothing obvious. Just the same face I'd seen all my life, or at least the one I'd been told was mine. But something was different. My reflection wasn't breathing in sync with me. I leaned forward. So did it. I raised my left hand. So did it. But when I blinked, I swear to God, it didn't blink back at the same time. It was off by half a second. I stumbled backward, heart hammering, pulse in my ears. I looked again, this time holding my eyes wide open, daring the reflection to challenge me, to admit what it really was. The moment stretched. My chest rose and fell in sharp rhythm. But then I noticed something I'd missed before. In the mirror's background, behind my reflection, the hallway was wrong. The coat rack was missing. The wall was painted gray. Ours is cream. And on the floor behind my mirrored self, there was a door. A narrow, black-framed door with a keypad. It was where our umbrella stand should have been. But when I turned around in real life, it wasn't there. Just the normal wall. Just the stand. I looked back at the mirror. The door was still visible behind me. That was path B. I knew it instantly. I pressed my palm to the glass, and it felt warmer than it should. Then, as if recognizing me, the reflection's background shimmered, like heat over asphalt, and the glass began to ripple. Not a hallucination. Not a metaphor. The mirror was asking me to step through it. But what waited behind that door? Was it the truth? Another layer of lies? Or just a final trap? One built by whatever program or organization or system had constructed this prison of familiarity. I thought of Mila's words. This is the 4th version of you I've loved. And that told me everything. I'd already chosen path A 3 times before. So I stepped forward. The mirror welcomed me. Stepping through the mirror didn't feel like walking. It felt like waking. One moment I was in the hallway. The next, I was standing in a room that looked almost identical to our bedroom, but stripped of all decoration. Bare white walls. Soft ambient lighting. No windows. Just a single screen on the wall in front of me, humming gently, waiting to speak. I was alone. No cameras. No wires. No cuffs or guards or masked interrogators like in some dystopian movie. Just stillness. Then the screen flickered. Cycle 4 complete. Welcome, Edgar Mercer. My name. My true name. Not the one assigned in the file, not the fragmented version whispered in distorted memories. The way it sounded in that room was right. Like I was finally hearing myself correctly for the first time. Do you remember why you came here? The screen asked. I didn't answer out loud, but something in me stirred. Something primal. Something true. Images flashed. Not hallucinations, not dreams, but memories. Real ones. A hospital bed. Mila's face, younger, pale and frightened, holding my hand as I lay motionless. Machines beeping. Doctors talking. Words like unresponsive, traumatic event, procedural coma. I gasped, not because I was shocked, but because I finally understood. This wasn't a surveillance program. Not some government conspiracy. It was a recovery protocol. An internal reconstruction of self. I hadn't been imprisoned. I'd been preserved. The program, the cycles, the version memories, the scenarios and relationships and reality loops. All of it was part of an advanced therapeutic system designed to protect my mind as it tried to heal from something that should have destroyed it completely. Mila wasn't my captor. She was part of the system. Yes, but also herself. Her voice, her choices, her care, all of it had come from the outside. From her, the real Mila, fighting like hell to keep me anchored to something human while the rest of me drifted in limbo. The tears came fast. Not from fear, not even grief, but relief. For the first time in what felt like 1,000 years, I felt my heartbeat inside my own chest. I felt real breath in my lungs. I felt like I wasn't just observing myself. I was being myself. The screen faded to black, replaced with one final message. You may exit now. This is the last time we will rewrite you. The wall behind the screen opened. Light poured in, warm, natural, golden. I stepped through, and there she was. Mila, the real Mila. Tired eyes, tear-streaked cheeks, messy hair, dressed in soft blue scrubs. She was sitting in a chair beside a hospital bed. My hospital bed. Monitors beeped softly beside her. She looked up, and her breath caught in her throat. Edgar. I didn't speak right away. I couldn't. My throat was locked from the emotion. But I nodded. My hand reached out slowly, fingers trembling. She grabbed it like she'd been waiting forever. You're back, she whispered, crying now, face crumpling with joy. You found your way back to me. I remembered. I finally croaked. I remembered everything. Her smile, real and imperfect and beautiful, was the most honest thing I'd ever seen. Outside the hospital window, morning had broken. The sun rose steadily, warm and wide over the horizon, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a subject or a simulation. I felt like a man who had been lost and found again. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new one. And this time, it was mine.